everyone, it's Emily. It's about 10 p.m. here, and everyone else in the house is in bed, so I've turned on all the lights in my room, and I'm trying not to talk too loudly so I don't wake anyone up, but hopefully we'll get a video out of this. So, it's been about, I want to say 4 weeks since my last video. I had been intending to do another video at around the 2-week mark, but life got in the way, and I didn't feel like I had all that much to report, and then stuff continued to happen. So, I'm here now. Welcome to my channel if you haven't been here before. I like to talk about all of my crafts, and I do quite a few crafts, so I'm going to have timestamps down in the description bar with the time I start talking about each different category, so if you're only interested in one, you can skip to it. The categories we're going to talk about today are my cross-stitch embroidery. I've worked on 2 projects there. We're going to talk about my Yarny crafts, knitting and crochet, and this week there's some yarn dyeing included in that. And then I want to talk a little bit about kind of the other category. I've been doing some experiments with some mixed media using fall leaves, because it's fall here. And up in Oregon, the fall is really quite pretty. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and jump into the embroidery cross stitch first. Right, so it is Sunday, September 17th, I believe, and I just put my 4 Heavenly Beasts cross stitch back on the frame. This is being done on 18 count Aida 2/1, and I'm currently working on this little column right here. This is the beginning of my 3rd page that I'm working on, and I am currently 8% of the way done with the pattern and have used 67% of the colors. So I'm going to work on this and we'll show you my progress. Alright, so I have finished up the 3rd column on the 3rd page of 4 Heavenly Beasts, which puts me at about 9% done and ready to take a break from this and move on to another project. So I realized that I didn't actually film an intro for this piece, so you're going to be getting this as a voiceover of a picture before I started working on the first day that I worked on it. This is my Flower of the Month series. The designer is Ellen Mauerstroh, I believe. I'll have a link down to the patterns. They're free patterns. They were from, I believe, a 2010 stitch along, I think. And so this is the July Larkspur flower. I am stitching this on a 28 count Monaco, which I dyed myself using grit dye in the brown color to get kind of a tan background. And so I'm gonna, well, I would say I'm gonna get started working on it, but I've already worked on it and this is just later. So you're gonna see what I worked on in just a minute. Alright, so it is Sunday, October 18th, and I actually finished stitching on this ages ago. I just haven't gotten around to to, let me slide that slightly out of sight. I haven't gotten around to filming an update on it and to changing the pattern out, because usually I would change it, film an update, and then change my pattern. I just haven't gotten around to doing that. So I finished the butterfly, backstitch it and everything, and then I started working on this spur, as it were, of the larkspur. Got a little ways down into it. I'm going to take a break here because I'm getting a little tired of it, and then I'm not quite sure what I'm going to switch to, so you'll see in the next video. Hey, so it is September 21st, and I'm still working on weaving, stuff's falling over, I'm still working on weaving in the ends on this crocheted blanket. I've got some done, but I've still got a ways to go on that. But I had some yarn left over from doing that blanket, and I decided to crochet this thing. So, well, first of all, I'll just tell you, I took, about half of my yarn was my white and my light blue, so I made a ball with the white and the light blue, and then I made a ball with all the other colors, and I held both together and crocheted it. This is Red Heart Super Saver, and I was using, I think, a J hook, my biggest hook that I own, to make this thing. So what is this? Well, I love pet rats, and I'm going to be adopting pet rats. Hopefully I'll get some out of the litter in the next month and a half. So this is kind of what I've dubbed a little rat cozy for them. I started with a pattern that was, it was like, you made two things about the height of this for the walls, so at about this height, and then you sewed them together to make this kind of like, I don't know, rat cave, I guess, with two halves. But as I was doing this on the top, I got to about here, and I realized I wasn't going to have enough yarn to do the full other half, so instead I just made the walls taller. I started going back and forth instead of around, and made this little doorway, and so this way it can just sit on the bottom of their cage or on one of their cage shelves, and we can put bedding inside and they can go snuggle up underneath it, which is probably a better design anyway, because rats are somewhat notorious for like peeing in their bed, so it's better that this be on top rather than underneath them. Anyway, and I'm hoping that with it being done out of two strands held together, that way if they nibble on it and they just break one strand, the other strand will hopefully still hold, so hopefully they won't ruin it. Cross your fingers. I've had some rats do great with stuff that I've made for them, and some rats just tear it apart, and I don't know what these little boys are going to be like, so. Anyway, I finished this. I used up like literally every last scrap of my yarn. I was down to the last little bit, and I work, and like the end is woven in and it ends like here, so I used it all up. It was almost 200 yards, so that's my little rat cozy. Alright, it is September 21st, and I have fully finished this crocheted blanket I was working on. It's the Flowers in the Snow pattern, done with Red Heart Super Saver scraps of various colors. I ended up using about 1,500 yards of yarn, but I couldn't tell you what all the various colors are. Last time you saw it, in the previous video, I had finished the crocheting, but I had a ton of ends to weave in, and I actually thought that I wasn't going to get that done today. I thought it was going to take me another 3 or 4 days to weave them in, because I was doing a few at a time, so I didn't go nuts. But I ended up wanting to watch some YouTube videos about an organizational thing that I'm thinking about doing, and anyway, I ended up sitting there listening to people talk about how they organize stuff while I was weaving in the ends, and I got them all done today. So, I am super excited about that. The blanket does need to go through the washing machine just to wash it, and I'll check it and make sure that none of the ends worked their way out, so that way, since I'm planning on donating it possibly to a homeless shelter, it seems like it would be a good idea to make sure that the ends are not going to pop out before I give it away. So, anyway, I am done with that, and I'm super stoked about it, and I'm not sure what knitting or crochet project I'm going to be working on next, but you will see that. I have a big drawer of, oh, what is the word? String. crochet cotton. I have a big old drawer of, actually I have 2 drawers of it in one of those plastic drawer storage units. That's where I keep my yarn. And I need one of those drawers for my cross stitch floss, so I'm trying to do some projects to use up some of the things of string that I have. I had bought this, I had been given some, and I had bought this big old grab bag of string at Goodwill in order to get some of the white that was in there, and I got a bunch of other colors I don't really love. So the first thing I made out of this was I made these little roses. I made 5 of them out of one thing of, it was a mostly used up thing of crochet cotton. I used the pattern called Mini Rose by Happy Patty Crochet. I really like it. She has, I mean, this is just a little rose and it's really cool. She also has some super realistic other flower patterns that I love. I'm going to have to get some more of her patterns. Like I said, I really liked this little pattern. You basically crochet petals, a string of petals, and then roll it up into this little rose and then sew it together with the tail. So those are great. I'm not 100% certain what I'm going to do with them, but I liked them and they used up this cotton. Now the pattern is called Mini Roses, and it's originally intended for like size 40 cotton, which is super thin and tiny, and the roses come out about this big and they're so cute. This was, I don't know, I mean this is practically like fingering weight yarn. It was very thick, but even with a larger size, I think it came out very nicely. So, I have those 5 that I made to use and used up that ball of cotton, which I was very pleased with. The next project I worked on is also crochet and also involves crochet cotton. I'm doing a filet crochet piece, which is basically it's like a mesh and certain areas are filled in and that makes a picture. So, I'm sure you guys can totally see what this is at this point, right? Right? I'll give you a hint. The pattern is called Yin Yang Dragons. It's by Jacqueline Barty. I had to check my notes. And it is going to be this big square, basically. The cotton is a very old, vintage, clearly ball of this J&P Coats size 30 crochet cotton in this kind of ugly yellow that I have like 8 balls of in different weights, 4 of which are this size 30, so I should have enough to do this Yin Yang Dragon. I'm not going to keep it this color because obviously this is not the right color for a Yin Yang. My plan is to dye it white and then mount it against some white poster board, foam board, that's the word I'm looking for. Mounted against some white foam board, so it's a black crochet piece on white, and it looks like a black and white yin yang. So, you can kind of sort of see this is the top of one of the dragon's heads, and the other dragon is going to sprout out from here, and anyway, it's cool, I like it. It's fairly slow going. I'm working this with this US size 8, 1.25 millimeter, I believe it's a Susan Bates hook. I bought a set of like 5 little steel hooks, and I'm not, whoa, stabbed myself in the thigh with a crochet hook. I'm not a huge fan of these crochet hooks. The end here is very rough, and I had to put some medical tape on it so it wouldn't scratch my hand as I was working with it. I also wasn't impressed with how small the sizing went. I ended up buying on Etsy, there was a seller, well, there were multiple sellers that were selling much smaller hooks than I could find, and they were from a Japanese brand. I can't remember what the brand was. I'll let you know when it comes in. So I got those because I wanted to see if those were better if I had a slightly smaller hook. This is a little bit of a, I could be working this with a smaller hook, basically. So there's that. I'm not going to change this, but for some of my other projects, I have some even finer cotton that I want to do even smaller, like little roses with, and I want to have a finer hook. So the other thing is I'm not horribly impressed by the tip of this hook. I don't feel like it feels very blunt, and it can be hard to get in between the tiny little thread spaces that you need to crochet into. So I'm doing that. Now, if you've watched my previous videos, if you've watched way back, you may or may not remember this pattern, these Karna mitts that I was working on, out of the Deborah Norville Serenity sock yarn that I have. It's a I believe it's a merino bamboo nylon blend in the colorway navy, even though it's really a dark gray, but they call it navy. Anyway, this picture here shows as far as I got on them. I really love the pattern. I love the way the stitches were coming out, or the way the pattern was coming out, but I didn't love doing the knitting. This particular stitch pattern requires you to knit through the back loop of a stitch in the row below that you're currently working on. If you knit, you probably just kind of winced, and if you didn't, just trust me when I say it's as bad as it sounds. So, that picture where it was along my hand like this much, that was as much as I got in about 3 months. And I finally was like, you know what, I'm just not gonna knit this because I don't like physically doing that stitch, even though I really like the way it comes out. So I decided to rip it out, restart it with a different pattern. So I went searching, and I ended up finding, this is kind of from a pattern and kind of not. I found a pattern called Handspun Mitts. The designer's name is Haley, and it was just kind of it's a knitted from the top down fingerless mitt in a light fingering weight, which is what this is. And instead of just doing it in stockinette like she does, I did it in a ribbing, but I put in little ridges. Oh, the lighting is not going to work for me today. I put in these little ridges so that it kind of looks like a bamboo field because the yarn has bamboo in it. Now this is the first one. I did more than I had gotten done in 3 months on the previous pattern in 1 night of this pattern. And this you may be thinking, man, that's tiny. No, that is an adult size glove. It's just super stretchy. So you can kind of see here the ridges that I put in to turn these just stripes into kind of bamboo things. This is not done. I still need to put the thumb on it, so it'll have a little thumb going up like this, but it'll just be a little short bamboo glove, and it actually stretches out further. Someone with a substantially larger hand could wear this, which is cool. So I've done this one, and it's waiting for its thumb, and I am doing this one. As you can see, it's almost done. I just have a little ways to go to finish this off, and then I'll put the thumbs on them, and then I'll be done. And I'll be super stoked. And this will have been done so much faster than the other one because it's way easier to work. Now, this was the month of ripping out projects. You may also remember from the time I started the Karna mitts, I was also starting this apricot string bag, and I'll have a picture of how far I got. Now, unfortunately, I made a mistake fairly early on, and I inadvertently did some decreasing, and you can kind of see that the bottom edges of the bag really kind of stick out a little bit in that picture, and they're not supposed to. Plus, the puff stitch that the designer has you do to make an accent on this bag, and here I'll show you what the bag's supposed to look like. So these puff stitch accents, this PDF that was supposed to be of the pattern doesn't include instructions for working those puff stitches. So when I was out, I was like out at my best stop working it, and I realized I couldn't put in the puff stitches, so I skipped them. But I wasn't really happy because I kind of wanted the puff stitches in there. So I ripped it back, and I started again. I actually did this just tonight, and I got all of this that I'm about to show you since my crochet hook lets go of the yarn ball. There we go. I got all of this done tonight, so I'm actually almost as far along as I was before. I'd been slowing down on this project just because I knew I'd made this mistake and I didn't like it, and I was like, well, maybe it'll be okay, and I was like, no, it won't, and then maybe it'll be okay. So I ripped back down to where this little marker is, and then I've worked this far up, and it still kind of sticks out a little bit, but it's not as much, it's not as bad. So I didn't make the mistakes, everything is doing well, and you'll notice I have puff stitches. I went and I looked up how to do them on the pattern, so there's like a pattern written in a blog, and then there's the PDF that's supposed to be of that pattern, but it doesn't include the puff stitch instructions. Well, the puff stitch instructions are on the blog, fortunately. So I looked up how to do that, and then it turned out I didn't really like them. They were like super squat and weird looking the way the blog had you do them, but one of the people's projects, and I don't remember whose it was, but one of the projects actually had an alternative puff stitch that she liked better, so I've been doing those. And basically, for those of you that crochet, it's like the original puff stitch wanted you to be doing the equivalent of single crochets, so it was really short, and these new puff stitches want you to be doing the equivalent of double crochets. So I've got that going, and like I said, I watched watched. I did this in just tonight. Well, okay, I did. I watched The Girl on the Train, and I did all of this while that movie was on, because it's pretty nice in that you don't have to look, because you're basically crocheting into these big giant spaces. You don't have to pay attention to what you're doing as much, which is nice. I'm doing this with a light fingering 3-ply Regia in black and a little E or 3.5mm crochet hook. This is one of my favorite crochet hooks that I own. It's old. It came from my grandmother. I have no idea on the brand. Oh no, it's boy. It's a boy hook. It may be a very old boy hook though, so I can't guarantee. Anyway, I'm working on that, and I'm hoping that now that I've restarted it and I'm feeling really happy about it, that it will get done faster. And then, finally, I did some work dyeing yarn with food coloring. These skeins all started out life as Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool. It's a Aran Weight 100% wool yarn. So I'll show you what I did with it. These two started out life as, let me double check, as oak tweed. I keep wanting to call it maple tweed for some reason, but it's oak tweed. And so it was a light, very light cream yarn with these brown stripes in it. That was what made it the tweed. So when I over dyed it, it still maintains the stripes, but it's not light cream and stripy anymore. So this one I did with AmeriColor food coloring. I basically put the yarn in a pot, and then I put some blue-green on one side, and then some green down the middle, and then some yellow-green on one side. Or, actually, no, just straight yellow. And it came out really cool, but I felt like the yellow, which is here, was too pronounced. It was much yellower than this. It was a green still, but it was a very yellow green. So I ended up throwing it in a pot where I had a little bit of blue dye left over, so that way this yellow was toned down a little bit. And now I love it. It's very pretty. Kind of reminds me of spring bright green leaves. And then this one is kind of a fall leaf color. That was my goal with it. I actually ended up starting with Easter egg dye tablets for this one because I wanted to try them out, and I don't like them as much as I liked the food coloring. They took longer to dye in there, so I basically put it in, and I put, I think, 2 tabs of red, a tab of orange, and a tab of yellow in it because I wanted to get like a reddish, red to orange thing. And it was good, but it was a little bit eye-searing, and I wanted a little bit toned down. So I put it in a pot, and I put some red food coloring in it, which gave it these bright red spots. Put a little yellow food coloring, which gave us some nice orange spots. And then I put kind of a blue-green food coloring, which green and red are opposites, so they make like brown. So it kind of muddied it out to this purpley browny color, which is what I wanted, so that way it's kind of like a fall leaves and not quite so eye-searing, but also still cool. So I did that one. And then these two started out life as the color oatmeal, which is like a light tan. And they are a little bit smaller of skeins than the oak tweed ones because I'd already used some of this yarn for my dog Lily's sweater back when she was alive. So I had already dyed some of it and knitted up into a sweater for her. So these are a little bit smaller. This one was heavily inspired by some of the Kim Knits videos I've watched. She's got a great video on dyeing yarn. And it is a gradient from a kind of purpley color to what I was hoping would be a bright blue, but it's actually like a gray-purple blue. It's looking a lot more blue on camera than it is in real life. And I did this by dipping it into a dye bath that had a mixture of blue and red food coloring, so to make purple. Because the red dye molecules are smaller and they strike or bind to the fiber faster, when you dip dye it in, the first bit gets all the red, and then all the red gets absorbed, and then the later bits get all the blue. Well, the first bits get some blue too, because they can usually take on more color. So this one didn't come out quite the way I expected, because I wanted more of a stronger blue on this end, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get it to take on more blue on that end for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, but you can See, for example, here's the purplest end and here's the bluest end, and it is definitely more gray. It's looking more blue-green in the camera than it is. But nonetheless, I still like it. It's a very nice muted color, and sometimes muted colors are nice, especially after those bright ones. And then this was the final one. It came out nothing like the skein that I was trying to mimic, but it came out super cool. So I originally dyed it with a little bit of yellow and then some blue to make this blue-green color. And then I wrapped it up into a twisted hank like this, actually tighter than this. And I put it in a pot with a ton of black food coloring. Black food coloring never really makes black because, like I said, the red strikes first, so the red gets bound first. And so when I pulled it out, it was really, it looks black on camera more than it is. It's a purple. It's a pretty bright purple, actually. And so that is kind of scattered throughout it. And even on the sections where there's quite a bit of purple, like here, if you kind of look in there, there's still green in the middle because, like I said, it was all twisted up like this, so that way the dye couldn't get to every area. So I'm really excited about that one. I think it came out really, really cool. And if you're curious, these white ties are just white cotton string that never gets dyed because it's cotton, and these dyes only work on protein-based fibers and nylon. So all 4 of these are destined to be winter hats, I think. I may be experimenting with making pom-poms because I think with the red and the green I'm going to have enough to do that. With the other 2 I'm probably just going to have enough for a hat, so we may be experimenting with that. Right, so the last thing I've been working on is some fall leaf projects. I saw someone, who was it? I believe her name is Nina Rabina. I'll definitely have her linked down below, and actually probably the video that I saw. She was doing some pressed leaves and putting them in paper, and I'll show you what I'm doing. So anyway, I have here some encyclopedias, and then here are a whole bunch of leaves, both out of my yard and just that I collected on walks, and I'm not going to show them to you because they're all currently pressing and drying. But what I did was I'm experimenting. I took some of the leaves that were fully dried, and I'm experimenting with putting them in this kind of clear paper. This is called deli paper or dry wax paper. The brand I bought actually just calls it all-purpose food wrap. But it's a very thin, somewhat translucent paper. As you can see, I basically just took a leaf and glued it down and then put more glue on top of it, folded the paper over, and sealed it. And what I'm doing right now is I'm experimenting with, this was just actually some of a homemade cocoa butter based lotion that I use. I rubbed onto this area, and you can see where I rubbed it onto this half of the leaf. You can see the green of the leaf a lot better than you can over here, and it's actually kind of translucent. And on this sheet I did the exact same thing, but it's not as strong of an effect because the paper has different sides, and which side is out affects how well it's going to work. It actually looks a bit better on camera than it does in real life here. So, basically if you rub something waxy on it, or in this case oily, it will make the paper more translucent. And so my eventual hope is to make some greeting cards where I have like a cutout circle on the front of the card, and I glue in one of these leaves with this translucent background, so that way when you can kind of sort of see the writing inside, and when you open it up, you can, you have this translucent leaf insert. I think it'll be cool. Anyway, I'm currently doing some testing on that to see like which side of the paper do I want to have out, how do I want to glue it. I'm not really keen on using this oil-based lotion because I don't want the oil to transfer to the card and the writing inside. So I'm going to do some experiments with melting down beeswax, because I've seen some people on mixed media things who use a beeswax-based furniture polish, but I would rather just melt down some beeswax I have and use that and see if that works to make this clear. So anyway, just figured I would show this off because it's kind of cool. I like these ones. And the other nice thing is, like, this is a dried leaf. And if you've ever pressed leaves, they tend to come out really brittle and break easily. But with these, I mean, I'm not going to crease it because I don't want to have a crease in it, but you can basically fold it in half and it comes out totally fine because it's protected by this paper that it's glued to. So I'm really stoked about the idea. They look great when they have light coming through them. I think they would make a really cool, like, lampshade cover kind of deal. Anyway, I just figured I would show you what I had so far, and hopefully in the near future I'll be able to show you some finished cards so you can kind of see what I'm trying to do with it. That's really the only significant other crafting projects that I've worked on. I think I did do some sewing. I sewed a drop cloth to go underneath my desk. Basically what I did, I'm not going to show it to you because it looks like nothing, but basically what I did was I took an old mattress cover I had that had like a waterproof, like, protective cover on the underside, so that way if, like, you spilled something in bed or your dog peed in the bed, not that that happened to me ever, it wouldn't get to your mattress. And so I took that and I cut it down, and then I took an old sheet and I sewed it on top, so that way I have what looks like an old sheet, but it's actually got a bit of a waterproof lining underneath it, so that way if I drip paint, it won't get to my carpet. So I did that. I was very pleased that I got it done. It doesn't really look like anything because it kind of looks like an old sheet on the ground, but it works. So yeah, that's all. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear them down in the comment section below. And I hope to see you next time, and hopefully my next video will be in about 2 weeks rather than 4. Bye.